Julie's a great friend and supporter of the school and is, as Tyrone has mentioned, an alumni by virtue of her having completed her executive MBA at the University of Sydney. Julie holds a Master's in Public Policy from ANU and a Bachelor's degree in Business. She is the Executive Director of the Australian National Committee for UN Women, a position that she's held since 2007. And she's a passionate advocate on key issues affecting women, including women's leadership, pay equity, political participation and violence against women. She has experience in both the corporate and NGO sectors, and she actively works to support strong partnerships between the community, the private sector and government.
I spent the first probably 8 or 9 years of my career desperately trying not to be identified as someone who was ambitious. Because once they call you as ambitious, and I started my working life in the corporate sector, ambition was the word that put a full stop next to your promotion. If you were seen as a woman to be overly ambitious, you were done for. Now, I'm proud to be an ambitious young woman, and I think it's something that we all need to foster and encourage in the teams that we manage, because ambition isn't a dirty word when we talk about men, so it shouldn't be when we talk about women.
UN Women is the United Nations Agency for Gender Equality and the Empowerment of Women. We work in more than 80 program countries, delivering programs around women's economic security, women's access to leadership and decision making, and ending violence against women. One of the really interesting things about gender equality across the world is that no matter what country you're in, the challenges for women and girls still seem to be the same. They're at different scales, they're in different ways, but we find consistently throughout our work here in Australia, in the region and globally, that the issues of violence against women, the issues of women's access to economic security, and the issues of leadership and access to decision making seem to be the main ones affecting women and girls.
And how important is education when it comes to dealing with the issues that you've just mentioned?
Education is critical to achieving gender equality. Firstly, in terms of giving women and girls access to education, we know that when women are educated, they have their children later, the health and education outcomes for their children are stronger, and the community development outcomes are much better. So education for women is central to all of the work that UN Women and the other UN agencies do. But the other part of education that I think we don't focus enough on is the education of men around what does equality really mean and what does equality look like. Because I think there's a real fear here in Australia and in the region that somehow empowering women will disempower men. And so one of the biggest challenges and the biggest opportunities that we have is to educate a generation of young men to understand what equality means for their mothers, their daughters, their sisters.
What sort of role has your own education, including your EMBA from the University of Sydney Business School, played in your success?
I think education throughout my life has been a really big part of what I've done. My family was very supportive of me having a strong education, and being given the privilege to come to the University of Sydney Business School and study in the first cohort of the EMBA program really changed my whole outlook on what my future would look like. I think it changed how I run the National Committee for UN Women as a business. It changed how I engage with partners and with potential partners. But most fundamentally, it changed what I thought I would actually do and be able to achieve in my career. So it really made me think about what are my values, what do I want to contribute in the world, and how do I do that with the networks and the support and the privilege that I have to make the world different for the next generation of young women coming up behind me.
In that case, then what would you say, what would be your message to young Australian women now considering their careers, considering their education path?
I think what I'd say to the young women coming up next would be believe in yourselves and back yourselves. Surround yourself with people who challenge you and people who support you in equal measure. And really, in the words of Sheryl Sandberg, lean in. Because we see so many young women opting out, stepping back, taking the backseat role, and we really need to encourage them to be ambitious, to stretch themselves and to be supported by all of the wonderful institutions around them.